So Cuba, they like to say things like, for example, we don't have vaccines because we don't have syringes for the vaccine. But the number one producer of syringes in the world is China, and China also happens to be their number one partner for trade. So if they don't have syringes, it's because China did not provide it, or China. We can't send a big shipment to Cuba of medicine. I wish we could. It would be fantastic. They desperately need it. Unfortunately, the Cuban government will take hold of it. It is not because of the embargo. Let me just make this clear. I'm sick and tired of touching this subject, because the embargo is not the reason why Cubans don't have things. As a matter of fact, the United States is the number one provider of medicine to Cuba. And so Cuba, they like to say things like, for example, we don't have vaccines because we don't have syringes for the vaccine. But the number one producer of syringes in the world is China, and China also happens to be their number one partner for trade. So if they don't have syringes, it's because China did not provide it, or China won't sell it to them. It has nothing to do with the embargo. So let's start there. The reason we can't ship a container filled with things to Cuba is because the Cuban government will take it, will seize it, and then will sell it to the people. So if we want to provide humanitarian aid, we can't do it through the traditional means. So
it's $24 for a 5-pound bag of rice. Cuba, write me out. $24 for a 5-pound bag of rice. The median income pre-COVID lockdowns was around $40-$45 a month for a blue-collar worker. So 5-pound bag of rice, that's more than 50% of your monthly income. Poof.
Out the door.
If you want to stay connected with people on the mobile phone, that's another $25 for some phone minutes and 2 gigabytes of data. So if you got a relative in Miami who can spend $25, then great, you'll be able to stay connected with the rest of the world for probably another 10 days. If you don't have family in Miami,
or around the world, we're Cubans, we're all around. I don't think any person who has left the island of Cuba likes Fidel and or Raul or Díaz-Canel. The reality is Cuba is a dictatorship, and people do not have any freedom whatsoever. Well, I am Cuban. My parents are Cuban, and my parents left the island of Cuba. My father in 1969 and my mother in 71. My father was a political prisoner in Cuba and escaped via Guantanamo, the naval base. So that is how we got here. And Zach, you are?
I am Mexican-American. I get my last name from my father. He is Anglo-American. But my mother's family comes from Chihuahua, the mountains of Chihuahua. Recently enough that my grandmother was literally born in a log cabin. I'm not talking about a wooden house in the mountains. I'm talking about like Abraham Lincoln style log cabin. That's where my grandmother was born in the year 1940, because Mexico, a lot of places would be going without electricity for another 40 years. So literally 1940, my grandma was born in a log cabin. Eventually, my grandparents came to the United States. Do I like Fidel? Hell to the no. Fidel
I
Castro.
think that was for me, Zach. I'm going to say hell to the no to that one, too.
Well,
I don't know
you're being Cuban American. I guess I could let you answer, but I got a different claim to Cuba.
Yeah, I don't think any person who has left the island of Cuba likes Fidel and or Raul or Díaz-Canel. The reality is Cuba is a dictatorship, and people do not have any freedom whatsoever. You can't have a business. You can't prosper. Hell, you can't even grow your own food. So there's an extreme poverty in Cuba.
Raul's retirement, he literally put some of his own relatives and then people that he developed to fill the positions that he used to fill. But now that he has quote unquote abdicated, he has become more powerful than you can ever imagine. He hasn't actually stepped down. Another reason why we hate the Cuban regime is they